Welcome back to the Foreign Report. I'm Sina Ghaznavi, your foreign policy curious host who is wildly overstressed and overloaded with information right now. And joining us in the virtual studio is Noreen Malik, our producer, for just a couple more episodes. We're so sad that you're leaving. I know, I'm so sad. Noreen, it's Ramadan.
Ramadan Mubarak, everybody.
Ramadan Mubarak. In Farsi, we say Mubarak.
Where I'm from, we say Mubarak.
Yeah, I know. All right, so sure. It's all the same, right? Are you fasting?
I am not currently, but I did day 1, day 2.
Okay.
Turned out to be a little bit of a disaster, some might
happened?
say. Well, you wake up early, you're trying to eat a lot to stay full for the day before sunrise, and I pushed myself too hard. Let this be a lesson.
Wait, you binged?
No, I just call it protein overload. I don't know.
So you Muslim Ramadan binged, and then what happened?
And then, God, my stomach was not happy with me. And for the first time in my entire life, I threw up.
What do you mean? You mean first time during Ramadan?
Yes,
you threw up,
I've thrown up plenty of times.
Yeah. You don't drink. You're like a good Muslim. Okay, you don't eat pork.
I do what I can.
You do the You've done Ramadan every year since childhood.
Yeah, I mean, my first fast I think was when I was 10, but I only did one day, and I wanted to feel like a grown up.
Listen, I don't know about you. I heard Allah is super pissed at you for not following through on these previous days.
I know.
In my house growing up, my mom would fast, and I wouldn't, because I was like, "What's going on here? What are we doing? I don't understand this." And my mom would be in a really angry mood because she wasn't eating all day, and I would try to rationalize with her. I'd be like, "Mom, Allah does not want you to be so angry. He doesn't want you to be so upset. Why are you doing? Is this part of it? Is just being upset?" And she's like, "No, we're supposed to think about poor people and just people that don't have food and stuff like that." And I was like, "It doesn't seem like you're thinking about that at all. Seems like you're just upset with me for a variety of reasons."
Truly the hardest part is remaining calm. And I genuinely don't understand how parents do it.
The amount of deep breaths I take so that my 3-year-old does not trigger me into joining ISIS is unreal. Even this morning. "No, Daddy, I don't want you to put on my boots. Mommy only." I'm like, Do you know how many news articles I've had to read since 5 o'clock in the morning because of this damn podcast? You understand? I can't even keep all of it straight. We dropped an episode on Friday, and then Trump had this Zelensky meeting, and it was like, what do we even do? Why do we even put out an episode?
How can we keep up? It's impossible.
When I started this show, all I wanted was, I'll say it right now, I wanted a boring foreign policy show. I wanted to be able to read long articles, have discussion, talk about the nuances of geopolitics, how we live in the gray area, how's this? We are in full-scale authoritarianism.
Things are declining rapidly. Let's just say.
So this Trump-Zelensky meeting, we're going to lead off with this today. I want to talk a little bit about Ukraine. Then we've got our news stories on Iran, Gaza, and the tariffs as well. Anyway, our special guest, Mehrsa Baradaran, will be with us later in the show to talk about neoliberalism, another hot topic, and a concept that has ruined so many lives, neoliberalism. And so she's going to talk about that with us. But this Zelensky-Trump meeting, this
was crazy. And remember, we had high hopes last week.
Oh, that's
Mineral deal.
We were like, the craziest thing he did was talk shit before the deal is signed. And then it's It was like when you're playing asshole with your friends and someone doesn't like the rules that the president makes and they just start screaming and stuff like that. Everyone was screaming. It was crazy. The geopolitical form of screaming. And then Zelensky got trolled for not wearing a suit. Like, I get it. The guy has to put on, it's branding. He's branded as a wartime president. This is branding through and through. It's not like he can't wear a suit. It's that he's the president of the Ukrainian people. He wants them to see him in plain clothes, ready to like do his thing all the time. He's not trying to be a fancy suit man. The other thing that just happened today, was it today or yesterday? I can't even keep track. Trump said no more intelligence gets sent to the Ukrainians, which is like, okay, great. That's like an email we're not sending. Is that efficiency? Is that a doge? Did they just get doged?
Yeah, saving a lot of money by doing that.
And so in this meeting, Vance was even getting the history wrong. Mind you, there was this whole thing of like, oh, Ukraine is the aggressor. It's like, oh my Lord. Here's a quick stat before we get into a little bit more history. Between 2014 and 2022, Ukraine held 200 talks with Russia, reaching 20 ceasefires. Putin violated all of them, until this full-scale Ukraine invasion in February of 2022.
That was crazy to learn. Not surprising.
Not surprising, but also when I read that, I was like, you're like, I'm sure I didn't. I wouldn't talk to someone that wanted to kill me that many times ever.
Cut him out.
Yes, you need to cut. Is he a time vampire? Is he a time vampire? You need to get him out of your life.
Let go.
You need to get that negative self-talk out of your head. But I wanted to talk a little bit about history at the top of the show here, because at the time of going back to the Soviet Union falling, the time of Ukraine's independence, okay, 1991, the former Soviet Union had nuclear weapons spread all across the Union. But when the Soviet Union fell in Kazakhstan, Belarus, and Ukraine, there was nuclear material. In that time, in 1991, Ukraine held the third largest nuclear arsenal in the world. They had 1,900 strategic warheads, 176 intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, and 44 strategic bombers. All those missiles technically belonged to the new Russian government. And so there was a deal done called the Lisbon Protocol in 1992, where Ukraine, along with Belarus and Kazakhstan, agreed to return the nuclear weapons to Russia. But in 92, the states all agreed to join the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, which is, Russia and U.S. and Kazakhstan, Belarus, and Ukraine all agreed to reduce their nuclear weapons, of course. And they all signed on to it. And this was supposed to create a framework. But, you don't just like, as we've seen this week, someone says a deal's going to get done, and then it takes a while to sign the deal. Sometimes they say they're not going to sign the deal. Sometimes they say, I'm going to sign the deal, but you got to do X, Y, and Z. That's basically what was happening here. In 93, the people inside Ukraine, elected officials, started admittedly, becoming skeptical about handing all these nukes that after they just got independence from the Soviet Union. Whoever thought they wouldn't be, I don't know, they wouldn't feel confident giving all these nukes to the Russians?
It's hard to imagine.
It's hard to imagine. I know. And so they are saying to themselves, well, wait a minute. What if we just fought all this way? We just did all this stuff. I don't want to just hand these people all these nukes. So in April of 1993, 162 Ukrainian politicians signed a statement that added preconditions to the START treaty before it was ratified. That included security assurances from Russia and the United States, foreign aid for dismantlement, because you can't just copy and paste or copy and paste these weapons. You got to dismantle them. You got to do all this stuff. And then compensation for all that nuclear material. Okay? You get what the beak. So there was some back and forth. And again, the Ukrainians still didn't want to give up all their delivery vehicles and their warheads. So there's all this back and forth. This is now 2 years after they are now independent from the Soviet Union. And they're like, are we going to just give them everything? It wasn't until 1994, a trilateral statement was reached where Ukraine committed to full disarmament in exchange for economic support and security assurances from both the United States and Russia. So Russia was like, listen, we'll make sure no one fucks with you. The United States was like, we're definitely going to make sure no one fucks with you. Russia is chill now. You have nothing to worry about. I promise you, nothing will happen in Russia that will upend this entire agreement and make you feel like you're going to be at war again. What could possibly go wrong? The United States and the Russians literally had to like drag these weapons out of Ukrainians' hands because they didn't trust the former Soviet Union. Of course,
sure,
they had to get security guarantees, funding. I mean, this is crazy. And here's the thing. Russia has wanted Eastern Ukraine since the very beginning. Okay. Demographically speaking, it's all these things. They've wanted it. And so, of course, things unraveled. But the reason we bring all this up is because in 2018, a clip was going around recently on the old social medias. And it was from our current Secretary of State, then Senator Marco Rubio.
In the early 1990s, Ukraine was left with the world's third largest stockpile of tactical nuclear weapons and strategic nuclear weapons on the planet. But they signed this agreement with the United States, the United Kingdom, and Russia that basically said, if you give up your nuclear weapons, we, these three countries that signed to this, will provide for your defense and assure you of your defense. And so Ukraine did that. They gave up these weapons. Well, now, this was signed in 1994, 20 years later, one of the three countries that signed that agreement hasn't just not provided for their defense, they actually invaded them. And I want to make a point on this for a second. Think about if you're one of these other countries around the world right now that feels threatened by your neighbors. And the United States and the rest of the world are going to you and saying, listen, don't develop nuclear weapons. Don't develop nuclear weapons, South Korea. Don't develop nuclear weapons, Japan. Don't develop nuclear weapons, Saudi Arabia. We will protect you. We will watch out for you. What kind of lesson do you think this instance sends to them? I think the message this is sending to many nations around the world is perhaps we can no longer count on the security promises made by the free world. Perhaps we need to start looking out for ourselves. And that's why the Ukrainian situation is so much more important than simply what's happening in Europe. This has implications around the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, I get it.
I mean...
Yeah. Go ahead.
That's what I was going to say.
That's it. I mean, listen, I get it. You know, we're in a position where it's America first. You're the president. You get to make these decisions. And then there's these arguments to saying like, well, Zelensky's not allowing elections. It's in their constitution that if there's a war, they don't have elections. Okay, that's not a Zelensky thing, right? Here's the thing. No one can trust us anymore. Even if we get the perfect Democratic president the next term. Let's just call him the platonic ideal of presidents. Both parties. Electoral landslide. Or her. You're right. Oh, God. There goes the show. We're so fucked. God. We're so screwed. Yeah. Okay. Let's just say, you know, I mean, if the Republicans are going to vote for them, it's going to have to be a guy. So
you never know.
So, you never know. You know, Marjorie Taylor Greene could really turn it around. Let's say it's a perfect president. Okay. Electoral landslide. You know, every electoral college vote goes to this person. We literally can't make any sort of security guarantee to anyone ever again. Because everyone's just gonna be like, well, what happens if you just get one of Donald Trump's children in office again? They're just gonna like go back on the deal. So
no, it's so damaging.
It's
what's going on, you could say.
I want to be also wary of this concept or this idea that Democrats are warmongers now. And that's not what I want to convey either. War is awful. We should be avoiding it at all costs. There should have been ways to maybe negotiate for this, but Putin did this. Putin ran in. He stationed his tanks at the border. He's been trying to do this for years. I mean, he started this stuff. And so the problem is now every action we do is a signal to the rest of the world. And we are in a real tough position right now as a country. I don't know what we stand for. I don't know if we're down to help. I mean, these Ukrainians, man, they fight hard.
Yeah.
I was reading about what we sent them. People are talking about how many billions and billions of dollars of all this stuff. What we sent them were our old weapons. Most of everything we sent them was old stockpiles. And when they calculate the cost, they don't say like, oh, this, vehicle has been depreciated by X amount and that it costs this much. No. They value the missiles or whatever we're sending at the cost that it was to create it at that time and then adjusted for inflation.
Wait, what?
Yes. I mean, if you think about it, the number is inflated, but it's really inherently very little. It's chump change comparatively. And for us to get Ukraine to basically fight a proxy war for us, let's be honest, that keeps Russia at a standstill from expanding its territory. That's the other thing that's also in Trump's doctrine is he does not care about borders. He cares about our border, but he doesn't care about anyone else's border and border integrity.
Which is kind of progressive if you think about it. Borders are fake.
Borders are fake. That is exact. Yes. That is what he was thinking. That's exactly right. And so he doesn't really mind if these borders get blurred a little bit here and there. He doesn't mind. And so that, I think, is a really interesting little piece because we hear these big numbers being thrown around. And I'm sorry I don't have the actual amount of military spending we've sent over there to them in front of me. But please, someone in the YouTube comments, please
comment down below. Comment down below your best guesses.
The Foreign Report, lpn@gmail.com. Let's put up the email. Send us your questions. That to me is where we're at with Ukraine. I think this whole thing and not sending them like the email of intelligence is just crazy. We fired a bunch of these CIA guys. Maybe they get hired by the Ukrainians. I mean, they're all out of work. I've seen a lot of resumes on Indeed.com for intelligence officers.
Well, what they want is us to be like Russia's sidekick in the future, right? Like we're just going to be like Putin and US together.
Okay, so let me say this. I was never into the whole Russia collusion thing. I was 100% against it. The only thing I believed from that Steele dossier was the P stuff, okay? Was the golden shower. That's the only thing I found believable, okay?
Golden showers, now we're on to golden domes.
Well, I didn't believe any of it except that, like, you mean to tell me that, like, he was colluding constantly, like, integrate? He's just a chaos agent. There's no way that someone was actually colluding with him. I found that to be hard to believe, and the Mueller report substantiated that as well, right? That it was just like, not really. And so that was, wildly frustrating. I think at this point, though, it just seems like there's got to be something in it for him. Or is this like some very strange, again, way of trying to isolate China? There's also an argument you can make, and we'll talk about Iran a little bit later, that if you cozy up to Russia, that could greenlight Israel attacking the Iranian government, and because the only people that would stop Israel from going into Iran, into the Islamic Republic of Iran, are the United States and Russia, right? And so if that's able to happen, then another very strange moment will happen for me, where I will be happy that the Iranian government is leveled, but I will be also terrified of a hot war in the Middle East. And so China then is becoming more isolated. So these are all things that I'm not saying any of this is, going to happen, but these are questions that have to be asked and thought through. And frankly, I don't know who's thinking about these things.
Right. Okay. Also, I feel like it's worth us noting that after Zelensky and Trump's meeting, it was like France and the UK are working on a deal with Ukraine without the US. So it's like everyone's kind of full steam ahead while we're up Putin's ass. That's what I'll say.
Tell me how you really feel. Yeah. And the other thing is we've also spurred an entire military industrial complex like revolution in Europe. So it's like, I know it's not great that America is the world's policeman, but now everybody is the police. Now we got cops everywhere. Everyone's going to have missiles. I don't know if that's great. I don't know if that's a good idea. Maybe it's... Yeah. What's the European version? Ekeb. All right. God, I can't talk about this anymore.
No.
When we come back, we're going to talk about the news, tariffs. Woo! Whoa, boy. A lot of red in my stock portfolio. A lot of red. Cutting off aid to Gaza and Iran right now. So I'm Sina Ghaznavi for Noreen Malik. This is the Foreign Report. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to the Foreign Report. I'm Sina Ghaznavi. Noreen, take us away on the news here.
Well, the roller coaster continues tariffs and the trade war, if you will. I think in our last chat about tariffs, Trump had agreed to hold off on any implementation for a month. But on Tuesday, March 4th, yesterday, the tariffs on Mexico and Canada went into effect and were met with immediate retaliation. Now Trump is expected to announce a potential tariff reduction deal with Canada and Mexico, all contingent on their efforts to curb fentanyl trafficking, though Canada denies any discussions that were going on previously. And this all comes after the stock market dipped for the second day, and businesses across North America brace for supply chain disruptions, rising prices, and potential job losses. Some companies are exploring automation, relocation, or alternative markets to mitigate the fallout. Now, Mexico has made major concessions to avoid the tariffs, including cartel extraditions, fentanyl crackdowns, and increased border enforcement. But it didn't matter. Trump still imposed 25% tariffs, prompting retaliatory levies. Trudeau condemned the move as, quote, dumb, while Trump warned of reciprocal hikes. Trudeau and Trump are expected to talk today, and Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum called the tariffs unjustified and plans to chat with Trump on Thursday, with Mexico's countermeasures expected this weekend. Also, the U.S. escalated the trade war with China, adding a new 10% tariff, triggering retaliation from Beijing. The Chinese embassy in the U.S. said in a post on Twitter/X that, quote, if war is what the U.S. wants, be it a tariff war, a trade war, or any other type of war, we're ready to fight till the end.
Oh, that's a bit ominous.
Yeah.
Any other type of war? Any?
It's like they're just locked and loaded, ready to go.
Maybe a war of words? Maybe a sporting war. A drinking war.
Exactly.
He couldn't mean actual war.
Anything's possible. Anything's possible.
So
And in Trump's speech last night, he said he would move ahead on April 2nd with plans for reciprocal tariffs on countries around the world that he sees as treating the U.S. unfairly.
It's literally everyone except Saudi Arabia and Russia.
Crazy. Do you think he pushed for April 1st, but everyone thought it would have been an April Fool's joke?
He did. I actually saw him make a comment about that. He goes, I wanted April 1st, but then I couldn't do April Fool's. Noreen, to your point, you're really inside this man's brain. He even knew. He knows he's a joke so badly that he can't do anything on April 1st because no one takes him seriously.
Surely I thought that would not be real.
So I just can't.
Yeah, well, brace yourself. So up next, Israel has cut off aid to Gaza, halting food, fuel, and medical supplies, which has led to soaring prices and worsened humanitarian conditions. Israel says the siege aims at pressuring Hamas to accept its ceasefire proposal, and Israel has delayed moving to the second phase of the deal it reached with Hamas, which was when the flow of aid was supposed to continue. And Netanyahu said Tuesday that he is prepared to increase the pressure and would not rule out cutting off all electricity to Gaza if Hamas doesn't budge, which is insane. Aid organizations warn of looming catastrophe with food and medical stocks nearly depleted. Oxfam has 26 trucks with thousands of food packages and hygiene kits and 12 trucks of water tanks waiting outside Gaza. The International Organization for Migration has 22,500 tents in its warehouse in Jordan after trucks brought back their undelivered cargo once they had to turn around. The International Rescue Committee has 6.7 tons of medicines and medical supplies waiting to enter Gaza, and its delivery is, quote, highly uncertain.
I think what's crazy here right now is the deal making that's happening because Hamas, literally the worst negotiators in the history of negotiators, because they are just, terrorists. So that's like, and they're not state actors. This is the other problem I think is inherently we have here is that we have to judge Israel on the basis of a state actor, which means they're part of the United Nations, like it's the United Nations. So when a state actor does something, they have a higher standard. When Hamas, a terrorist organization, does something, we call them terrorists, right? And they do all these things, but their standard is not as high. So when they come to the negotiating table, you're still negotiating. It's like the Taliban. It's like, unless they consistently are saying, and from what I'm reading, Hamas is saying, we want to run Gaza. We want to administer it. And the Arabs are saying, no, that's not going to work. We're not going to give you any money. You guys are very bad at running the area. And Israel's like, well, we don't want them running it either. And I'm like, well, you guys fucked this up too. And so
Get Cena in the room.
Yeah. Can we just speak plainly to both sides here? And I hate saying both sides. I feel like both sides is the new, it gives me such ick saying both sides because there's a lot of sides. And then again, the Palestinian people are pawns in this grand geopolitical spat that keeps happening. And you have Trump's putting out AI videos of the Gaza Riviera. I mean, everything gets exacerbated by the irresponsibility of people in power. And this is what is so frustrating because still people are suffering. I mean, for crying out loud. The hostage thing was insane, okay? And then it's like how you saved the hostages was insane. The terrorist attack on October 7th was insane. How you retaliated was insane. Ethnic cleansing is insane. The constant okay, we're gonna more rockets, more killing. It's just a cycle of violence, and every time you try to have peace, the only way peace seems to be produced is through more violence, and that doesn't actually create lasting peace. So, what is my solution? I'm going to leave right now because I don't have one.
Yeah.
I have no idea other than what suit me up, coach. Put me in the room.
Yeah, honestly. It's crazy. It's absurd. Also, I thought it was hilarious Netanyahu being like, I wouldn't rule out cutting off their electricity. Yeah, honey, we know. You will.
Thanks, baby. Thanks. Did you tweet that? Just put that in an email.
God.
But I think the Arab countries will come around, but there needs to be, someone else, like the Fatah party could come in, step it up, I don't know. Anyone else? Literally get the coach of the New York Giants to come in. I don't care who it is anymore. Anyone but Hamas needs to run the Gaza Strip. It's really ruining everything, and it's only getting exacerbated. So, I mean, it's and people, the amount of casual ethnic cleansing language that's going around is making me sick. And again, these people, we've talked about this on the show ad nauseum. At the end of the day, there's innocent people that are pawns that are just getting killed left and right during this conflict. And it doesn't seem like anyone really is doing much of anything other than
crazy.
Making worse.
It's been happening for decades and decades.
Well, Noreen, as the romantic comedy of this episode continues, can we move on to our next topic? Oh, God.
Oh, of course. Well, get this.
I'm getting it.
Russia.
I'm getting it.
Russia has offered to mediate between the US and Iran over Tehran's nuclear program, even though Moscow was not ever officially asked to do so, which is really cool of them, I think. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov emphasized Russia's commitment to a peaceful resolution. Meanwhile, Trump has resumed a, quote, maximum pressure campaign on Iran, but remains open to negotiations. The U.S. warns against Iran's uranium enrichment nearing weapons-grade levels, while European nations consider reimposing sanctions. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio discussed Iran-related threats with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu.
What is happening?
And for a bit of context, in 2015, Iran agreed to a deal with Britain, Germany, France, the US, Russia, and China, known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. And that lifted sanctions on Tehran in return for restrictions on its nuclear program. The US quit the agreement in 2018 during Trump's first term as president, and Iran began moving away from its nuclear-related commitments. Now, Britain, France, and Germany have told the UN Security Council that they are ready, if needed, to trigger a so-called, quote, snapback of all international sanctions on Iran to prevent them from acquiring a nuclear weapon. And Trump has directed his UN envoy to work with allies to snap back international sanctions and restrictions on Iran.
Yeah, so this is, again, another whole thing. I can't help but think that a lot of what's happening, there was just this IAEA memo that went out from the chair that basically like teed up the idea that Iran is further enriching, making things worse, and I don't know, paving the way for regime change. And so I don't know. I'm in this weird place, and maybe we can talk about it with our next guest, Mehrsa Baradaran, and so about what the hell is going to happen if, you know, Bibi decides to send some rockets and level the government of Iran. I mean, you know, just to be very blunt about it, I don't speak Farsi to my kids enough because I don't know when there will be a time when I'm able to take them there. You know, I don't, we're going to celebrate Persian New Year's, but I would love a time when I can safely take my family there and show them where me and my family come from and where they come from and my kids come from. But I don't know when that's going to happen. And frankly, if, let's say in a perfect world, if just the Iranian government, you know, gets bombed. I'll tell you a story like that. I'll tell you a story. Real quick. Yeah. I'm in the car with my mom, and it's the Obama years, and Obama's drone striking everywhere. And my mom is saying, like, she doesn't like Obama very much, but she wants Obama to drone strike the Iranian government, take them out. And I said to her, I was like, Mom, okay. And this should give you an idea of the Iranian diaspora. Mm-hmm. I said, Mom, what if Obama could strike the Iranian government perfectly, okay, and just kill every single bad mullah in the Iranian government? But there's one piece of collateral damage, and it's your own mother. And without missing a beat, my mother said, everything takes sacrifice.
Sina, you've told me this story before, and I honestly think about it a lot.
Yeah.
Like, it gives me chill. Like, I kind of find it to be...
It's savage.
Yeah, I find it to be beautiful. I know it's like great. Like,
it is.
I get it. It's like, yeah. It's hard. Like, you don't get it all.
This is where the conflict comes from, because who fills that void if they are leveled, right? And who else dies as a result? But for a lot of Iranians, they're like, fuck it, you know?
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about this anymore. I'm going to get emotional. Let's take a quick break. And when we come back, my dear friend Mehrsa Baradaran is going to be with us to talk about neoliberalism, some radical solutions to solve all of the world's problems that we're having in right now. And yeah, I can't wait for it. Please stick around. I'm Sina Ghaznavi for Noreen Malik. This is the Foreign Report. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Foreign Report. I'm Sina Ghaznavi. Noreen Malik is our producer in the virtual studio, and joining us is the amazing and just incredible, my dear friend, Mehrsa Baradaran, author of How the Other Half Banks, The Color of Money, and The Quiet Coup, best-selling author. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
So people know, if you get The Quiet Coup, you will hear my voice for upwards of 15, 16 hours.
Yes. You get to hear Sina read the whole book. Yes,
and
pronounce everything right, actually. Yeah.
How do you say Ben Bernanke? Bernanke. I had to do so many pickups of just his name.
Bernanke, yeah.
So you wrote this book. I want to talk about The Quiet Coup. Mm-hmm. And we're in this, I mean, there's so much news. I don't know how you're handling all the news. You're also such an incredibly intelligent person. I also wonder how someone so smart like you even handles absorbing all of these things, because you could probably write a dissertation on every single policy change that happens right now. Like, how do you even handle that? Let's just start there.
Yeah, you know, the benefit of having, so I'm teaching a seminar right now on neoliberalism and the law, and it's actually, my book is the text for it. They let me do it. So each week we go through one chapter. I've got 15 students in there, and then they give me these responses. And so it's amazing, not to toot my own horn, but the collapse of the democracy, I kind of already thought about it a lot in that book. So that book was very difficult to write, but part of writing that book was foreseeing a lot of what's happening right now. I mean, even unto Elon Musk being the future of the frontier of capitalism and his craziness, So I feel in a way I've already experienced this, and it's not surprising. It's in fact every time something happens, they're oh, government efficiency. I'm I wrote about that. So I'm trying. So it's actually not, I've already sort of grieved a lot of this. And I do think grief is the right response right now. I mean, I think one thing that Trump gets instinctively is that America is a fallen state. It is over. And he understands also instinctively that money's in charge. Money's always been in charge. And that's sort of the other side of what I'm trying to say in my book, And so when I look at it that way, it's well, we're all saying the same thing. His solution just happens to be fascism and punishment. And, he thinks he can fix it by going to some mythical past that was not good to begin with. And those of us who know just understand that, you just got to grieve it and then hope for the world that is to come. And so I think we're in this weird transitional space. And so I, as a scholar of this kind of politics, I try to take that 10,000 foot, 20,000 foot view of it. And when you do, it's all makes sense. It all feels like it's not surprising that they're blowing things up. I mean, you just imagine just already kind of come to terms with the fact that they're going to blow up the government in the next couple of years, if not sooner, and the market. Then it's just you're just kind of watching it unfold. And that, I believe, what emerges from it is a better system that because this market is not worth defending. This democracy was no democracy. This was not, we had corporatists on the one end and oligarchs and warmongers. Both sides have been upholding the system that doesn't deserve to be upheld. And so not I'm an accelerationist. There are people suffering right now. It's all bad, but both sides would have been not equally, but they weren't offering solutions that I think were matching the moment that we're in, which are drastic. We need to get to the root of this.
Who do you say "I told you so" to? Do you say that to him?
I don't. I try not to. But my students have been bringing up, they're it's crazy that we read about the court and then this thing happened in the court. And then we read about this and this exact thing is happening. So they're pointing it out. And so it's yeah, exactly. This is what's happening, Yeah.
For those in the audience that don't know, I'm sure they've heard the term neoliberalism a ton.
Mm-hmm.
Can you define it for everybody? Because you spent like a good chunk of it just defining it.
Yeah. So neoliberalism, there's what it says it was. What it says it was is like, Milton Friedman and these free market guys, that neoliberalism is like a revival of free market principles. But what it actually was, and so those are the ideologues of neoliberalism. But what it actually was a complete sort of, takeover of democracy by money power, so the money power, and this is a global money capital system that, how do you say it? Like leapfrogged over the sovereign nations, and has been since the 1970s really been the power structure that is controlling the global market since that time. So what neoliberalism says it is, it's a free market. What neoliberalism is a new power structure that is money and capital buying democracies, buying laws, buying regulations, and completely changing them. So it's not a free market. It's just the market, the capitalist controlling the laws that control them. And it's even capitalism is I don't, I try to be careful using these terms because it's not exactly capitalism either. It's more accurately just corruption. It's money and state power joining forces to loot. Right, that's the subtitle of the book, is The Quiet Coup, the looting, neoliberalism and the looting of America. Right, and so it is a upward, looting of money at billions, trillions of untaxed dollars that are offshore. And then the rest of us sit and assume that there's this legal structure, there's this democracy, that we have choices, when really it is, you're seeing it now. Elon going in there literally into the government is exactly what's been happening over the last 7 years. And now it's just very blatant and in your face, but it's been happening.
There's always the politicians, Democrat and Republican, always say, we're going to use the free market to spur change, to create innovation, to create wealth and stuff like that. When in reality, it's the controlled markets of people in power that are controlling democracy.
Yes.
At the end of the day.
Yes, it is. We're going to, these guys don't pay taxes, and then oil and gas is going to get a subsidy, and then these favored industries are going to get a subsidy, and then weapons. Let's not forget how much of the federal budget goes to weapons. I'm not going to say the State Department. I'm just going to say weapons technology, and how much of those massive Fortune 500 and tech and startup companies rely on the federal government. So there's a whole industry that is just government sponsored, has been since the creation of the military industrial complex, which Eisenhower warned about. If you do not control this thing, this will control you. And I think we are seeing that. And it's a profit war machine. And you brought up Iran earlier. 1978, 1979 is when the Iran-Iraq war started. I lived in Iran at the time, so there's like lots of bombs. Halliburton and Raytheon were arming up both sides to major profits. And at the time, there wasn't a war happening in the world. Vietnam was over, Cambodia, they needed money. They needed a war to make profits. You need constant war and weaponry to create that technology. So it's a supply and demand issue. When you realize that, actually, we have a gun culture, we have school shootings because they need profits, and they're in the law to make profits. And so they vote for wars. They vote for, against any curbing of guns in the streets, right? So that's one very illustrative way, but there's a lot of others. There's pharmaceutical, there's, Philip Morris, there's oil and gas. These are subsidized sectors that, if a free market actually existed, would not be around, would not be. These are government sponsored entities.
So talk to me then, how does neoliberalism, or maybe even just, I guess we're also talking about like corporate lobbying in a way, and corporate influence, how does that spread through the global economy?
Right. So in that 1960s interregnum, so before World War II ended, the world was controlled by like 5 or 6 European nations. They colonized every nation, and they extracted the resources from it under this ideology of racial supremacy. So what the Nazis do is take that ideology home to say, okay, you're doing racial supremacy there, we're going to do it in America. So that ideology of empire goes away during the World War II, right? You cannot take other people's resources and say it's because you're racially superior, which is what the British were doing because the Nazis had extended that into Europe itself. Like it's the same ideology. Hannah Arendt, Frantz Fanon, they say, look, this is a boomerang back home to your exact ideology that you were exporting. So there's this interregnum, of 10 years or so after those empires fall, the 1960s, every country that had been formerly colonized has some sort of civil war, war of independence. I mean, the entire globe decolonizes over that era. And the new question is, how do these companies that relied on Middle Eastern oil, right? The Seven Sisters controlled the Middle East, Kennecott Copper controlled Chile. You've got, Rizos in Argentina. It's not governments. It was corporations and governments all along. And so how do those corporations keep their, $1 contracts, their control over all of Africa's diamond mines and gold mines, right? How do you do that? So it becomes, a free market. Now we've got IMF debt. And now we have a more abstract way of doing empire, which is through money and debt. So now there's also violence. So if you don't play along, like Iran, let's say Mossadegh says, you're going to have to pay for our oil, right? You can still have it, but you're going to have to pay a market rate, and the CIA take him out, right? And then they put in their guy who's willing to keep the deal. So this happens across South America, across Africa. So there is an installation of, through violence, leaders that will play along with this new world order, which is you're going to take debt, you're going to take, aid, quote unquote, and you're going to let our corporations extract the minerals for nothing in your country. And you're going to keep your people suppressed and not, having revolutions against it.
If this doesn't connect with people, think about when you pay off your credit card. What's the first thing the bank sends you? Is a letter.
A new credit card.
A new credit card.
Yeah, yes.
They want you in debt.
Yes, capital is it's like, I tried really hard in the book to describe what capital is, because there's no, there aren't people here. Capital is an idea. It's an abstract, like, I don't want to say meme, but it's like a virus unto itself. What capital needs is growth. So once you have big pools of capital, we completely unleashed capital in the 1970s. Before the 1970s, you had 99% tax rates above like $1 million. If you made over $1 million, you basically had to tax all of it to the US. There was no billionaires before 1970. So once you unleash capital, you don't just unleash, how much money someone can have, up to like $1 trillion, Elon Musk, but you also unleash how much capital is going globally, right? So all of a sudden, capital is just everywhere. And capital becomes supercharged in that it's growing as fast as it possibly can, because we also unleash usury laws, meaning interest rate caps that were like at 6%. It was really difficult to have capital grow beyond 6%. And now it's up to like 20, 30%. So as that capital pile is growing, at least 20%, these private equity firms are offering, right? So if you look at capital and you look at its need to grow, and then you ask the question, where is that interest coming from? Where is that yield that capital must have coming from? That's coming from debt. So the other side, what kind of debt? It's credit card debt, it's mortgage debt, it's student debt, it's sovereign debt, so national debt. So there is this capital has those two sides. It's increasingly the majority of the world under debt, and a few, and I'm talking a smaller and smaller proportion, 1%, now it's 0.5% of the globe controls 90% of its assets. That's where we're at. It is higher than it was under feudalism. It is no 18th century robber baron could have dreamed of this kind of capital, because it's abstract. You don't need industrial factories. You just need finance. That's the other thing that neoliberalism allowed, is for finance to supercharge capital through debt. So now it's truly just an extractive system, and it's producing nothing. It's not actually a profitable system in that it's creating like housing or like trains or anything that actually builds and boosts the economy. It's just pure extraction and looting. It's now just offshore.
I feel like we're also in this kind of snapback period right now where it seems like the things you're talking about are resulting in the marginalization of, the working class and mostly everyone else, not even all just all of us,
everybody,
upper middle class, middle class, working class, working poor, below the poverty, everybody. And so there's all that resentment that's built up in America, especially, and around the world. And you see this rise of authoritarianism.
How do you move people like that and keep everyone under the boot? This is exactly where racism and misogyny do amazing work in that. Why is this, as they're looting, as they're doing Trump Gaza, as Elon is literally out there just gobbling up government money, how do they do it? It's cultural war issues. It's DEI. It's women, it's trans. It's you divide people up instead of recognizing all of us. Look, 99% of us are under this boot, and the guy with the boot, right? Like, it's Elon, the richest man in the world, and his cohort of other rich men who just care about money, telling you that it's the Black people, it's the Mexicans, it's the immigrants, it's the Muslims. That it's just like the easiest trick in the book, and we keep falling for it because we refuse to see our history. We refuse to see that it's always been that. Even slavery. Look, we'll give the white indentured servants the Klan outfits so that they'll keep the Black people down, so the cotton oligarchs could steal all the money and with the New York merchants. Like, it's a constant renewable resource, this culture war thing. And so that's why in my book on neoliberalism, I don't take the standard view of neoliberalism as like, oh, it's just about corporations and capital greed. There's a real story here about race and racism, because as the global South is becoming free in the 1960s, that interregnum era that I was just talking about, and trying to get sovereignty, they're saying it's linking up with the civil rights movement, and it's a real racial reckoning worldwide. Like, you have held us down, empires held us down for 500 years because of this racial ideology, and it's time to have like one nation, one vote, democracy, kind of extend the franchise. And it's at that moment that the elites and oligarchs take their money out and they say, crush democracy. If they're going to get the vote, we're out. Right. And so, but and Nixon, at the same time that he imposes neoliberalism, also tries the Southern strategy. And you look at globally, it's the Southern strategy. It's racism in a new hat. It's not the Klan. It's supply and demand. You're just poor because you're not productive. You're not Western and rational and scientific, and you just need to study more, and you need to be more, like value oriented and efficient. So the IMF comes into these, impoverished countries and say, oh, your poverty is because you don't have technological advancements and progress, rather than it's because you've had the boot on you for 500 years and weren't able to develop an economy, and were told that you were, lazy and all of this stuff. So it's all part of it.
I wonder, in the day and age now, and we're just talking about this kind of like rise of authoritarianism and where we're at right now, the Sadie Hawkins dance where, the girls ask the guys or whatever.
The girls ask guys. Yeah.
Not to like masculinize, to masculize neoliberalism or anything like that, but it's the Sadie Hawkins dance. What country is asking neoliberalism to the dance?
It's so interesting because I think it's like in everyone's interests to just let it go. But like the countries bend themselves backwards for these loans because that's the whole point of it, is that you have crushing economic circumstances. And so you need the IMF loans. You don't realize that you're buying this whole ideology, but we're all part of it. That's the problem with ideology is not like propaganda. It's not like politics. Ideology is something that you swim in that you don't know you're swimming in. Yeah. It's like, how's the water? It's like, what water? It's like, how is this racist, misogynist capital system that has been sucking, it's like, what are you talking about? This is just, I got to work and I got to pay my bills and I got to, that's what ideology does. It reproduces itself through us without us knowing our involvement in it. We are all brainwashed by the value system that neoliberalism embedded in the culture. It wasn't just the law. It wasn't just over there. It's in the way we view ourselves, the way we view our productivity, efficiency toward what? Efficiency toward what, right?
Yeah, we've talked about the efficiency thing on here. I don't think democracy isn't supposed to be efficient. Our government shouldn't necessarily be efficient. We should be saving lives. It's inherently not profit motivated if you need to save a life,
But when you actually look at the values embedded in neoliberalism, and that's what my book tries to do, it is a selfishness at the core level. Like every human being would be a greedy person like me, says the people who installed neoliberalism, right? Like they're saying there's no such thing as society. There's no such thing as community. Everyone's out for themselves. And therefore, let's create a system where that rewards that. And so if you look at Elon Musk, he has won the game of neoliberalism. Neoliberalism rewards someone like that. And Elon Musk's genius, he's no smarter than anyone. Yes, he's got like his Asperger's and autism, but his genius, if you read the Walter Isaacson book, which I did, is that he is willing to an extent that no other human being is, because he has like a weird emotional whatever, to drive people. He's willing to fire people. He's cut off his own brother. He wouldn't give his brother like a $5 million loan. He's willing to take these companies, fire mercilessly, drive people to their point of, extreme exhaustion and collapse to get what he wants. He's just monomaniacal. And that is who this system rewards with the most money, because that's what this system is about. It's efficiency toward absolute personal profits, no matter what the costs.
Speaking of Elon Musk, it's funny that we're in a period of these like dismantling these agencies and stuff like that. In Quiet Coup, you talk about how a lot of times these agencies have just helped corporate interests, regulatory capture, whatever, you name it, right? So what's your take on the doging of the regulatory state? Like, it's
unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, it's like the neoliberalism has a really interesting relationship with agencies, is because they get in there and they make their laws happen in the agencies, right? So the EPA, all of these agencies, the OCC, like mostly captured by industry. This is interesting. It's where the right and left differ. I mean, they're both stuck in neoliberalism, and the left is very like pro-regulatory state, but also ends up giving away the agencies to the corporations. Okay, so that's what the left does, and the right is anti-regulatory. They're more comfortable doing it authoritarian like, right? Like, we don't need these bureaucrats because the bureaucrats get in the way. Let's just loot straight, right? So by that I mean, it's really not. I mean, USAID is a point in case, right? This is like the soft edge of empire. Let's not lament. I mean, they're doing great things because, every institution evolves because there's always good people involved and looking for malaria and stuff like that, like solutions. But actually, it was really just to justify empire. It was like, we'll give you aid in return for your cooperation with this whole neoliberal system. So, yeah, and it is, I think Elon has no interest in actually cutting the stuff that he cares about, which is like, the defense contracts, the NASA contracts that he's getting money from. And so I think it's this chaos that's going to allow for these industries to come in deeper into these agencies and loot them further, right? So I don't think they're going to get rid of them. It's just a really easy way for corporations to just like open the doors, let them come in, remove the bureaucracy from the way.
Oh my God, we're so fucked. Okay, let's get to solutions. How is Mehrsa going to fix everything?
Do we burn it all down?
No, I think it's burning itself down, and I think the solution is it's burning itself down. The solution is not like a new structure of leadership and authoritarianship, or, vote for this person or do that. I think it's just a recreation of community and society. And this sounds like a soft answer, but it's also like a freeing ourselves from it. And in that way, freeing each other. I think it is coming down by itself. I think the new structures are going to be global, sort of all of us kind of together stepping out of this and forging new ties, new economies, not drastic, but in the way that like COVID, taught us that like within like a couple of weeks, we could completely restructure our jobs. Mm-hmm. Like imagine for a second, like if money disappeared overnight, like the dollars didn't work, nobody had a bank account anymore. like everything that you thought of that was like, oh, this is my savings, this is my payment, that didn't work. It stopped.
Rand Paul would be like, finally, I got it.
Finally.
Finally.
I would too. Finally.
These precious metals.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So, some people, you'd hoard gold. Would you actually hoard gold? No, we would create an economy based on, right.
Bling, bling.
So it's like what I'm saying is everything is connected.
Yeah.
And so it's a domino effect of, look, if the stock market falls, if this thing falls, it's just a quick, the financial crisis was another eyesight into that. When Lehman fell, like boom, 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 the entire economy. So we're at the cusp of something similar. There's no way they can keep breaking. It's like a Jenga thing. They keep taking out these pieces, and at one point it's all going to fall. And when it falls, it's going to fall massively and together because it's all connected. There is no free market outside of this dollar empire. There is no such thing as a market without this government structure. The courts, right? Their whole legitimacy is based on like justice. And when people lose faith in the court system, I mean, go to any third world country that has lost faith in the rule of law and see how fast that thing unravels.
Yeah.
That's I think my bet is on that unraveling first. My second bet is on a financial crisis unraveling the market second. So these things are very much tied together, and I'm not like doom and gloom apocalypse about it, but I do think that we're going to see some massive changes, and it'll be up to us to rise above it, to not let fear rule us, to really, reach out to neighbors, to do the work that we do, but try to really set up systems. I have ideas about how it could work, and in ways that are easy. You create, remember Dogecoin? $50 billion overnight, $50 billion. That many people believed in a meme coin enough. Give me 50, I'll give you your, little meme coin. Give me $50 billion and I'll do a leveraged buyout of the weapons companies.
Yeah.
Right? Like, just that kind of, like, money is just a coordination principle. We live in a world of stories and myths. Like, we just give me a story. Like, I'll give you a story. You give me your $50 billion of HODL money. Hold it. Let me see what I can do with the weapons first, and then the oil and gas second. And then you unclog. If it costs weapons manufacturers and lobbyists like $400,000 to buy up a senator for a vote, I could beat that. I'll get them, like it's just good ROI to buy laws. Let us just go after them, right? They're the source of the problem in the first place. These industries that have no business ruling the world. Weapons has no business being the primary industry ruling the world right now. It's crazy.
Whew. The book is The Quiet Coup, Neoliberalism and the Looting of America. If you get it on Audible, you'll hear me for many hours at a time. So strap in. Yes. Those of you that are listening to us here, you'll love the book. Then it is incredible. Like, you sent me a preview copy, and I asked, like, can I read this book, because it moved me. I went to law school. Everyone that's listened to this knows I'm a lawyer and I don't practice, but you dismantle everything that I learned in law school. And I was like, oh dear, the $300,000 I spent in student loans, that was part of the neoliberalism cycle, and all those books they made me read, it's all rigged. And I don't mean
part of the ideology.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it is, it is the water that we are in, is the air we breathe. And so it's an incredible, incredible book. I could talk to you for hours.
I know, I could listen to you talk for hours.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me talk.
There's so much more I wanted to get. We did it, but we'll have you back again for sure. Thank you so much, Mehrsa Baradaran.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
All right, that's it for the show, guys. I'm Sina Gazdavi for Noreen Malik. This is The Foreign Report, theforeignreportlpn@gmail.com. Send us a email if you got a question about anything. We'll see you next time.